눈에 품에
Hey guys, back at Channel 2 Movie. Thanks for clicking on my video. May be given abundant health and sustenance. In this video this time, I will be performing a Korean drama called Kill It. Without lingering, let's get straight to the storyline. The story begins with the boy who was being trained by a guy named where the Fable galvanized the boy earlier so cruelly not to have feelings for anything. If you want to be like him, who is a professional hitman. But when Papel, the assassin, told the boy it was to kill a dog, he can't even do that. Make him have to accept punishment. But the dog that had unexpectedly saved the boy, he can survive the rigors of training and severe punishment that he received until 16 years have passed. Now Bozo was an adult, and of course has become a professional assassin more than Papel itself. And her name is Kim Soo Hyun, different from Seo Hyun. Now Pavel, who used to be very nimble, in his old age, he even has a disease, decreased ability to do work as a hitman, where because it's Pavel then gave a photo to see Seo Hyun's past that Seo Hyun doesn't remember at all. But Seo Hyun doesn't care about it because he already thinks if Pavel is the only family to him. Hearing that, Papel then tells a little of Seo Hyun's past that he knows. If he was assigned by Seo Hyun's own father to kill Seo Hyun, even though I don't know what the motive of it all is, until, in the end, Papel at that time even neglected his duties and prefer to take care of Seo. Until now, Seo Hyun, who heard it, tried not to care, and instead then gave Vavel some photos about an island that he wanted to visit together, Vavel for entertainment, because he felt that his past didn't matter to him. Pavel, who heard it all from Seo Hyun, could only be silent, as if feeling guilty of treating Seo Hyun so coldly all this time. Even when you sleep, Seo Hyun remembered her past a little, made her get up and quickly headed to Vavel's room. But in his room, Soo Hyun didn't see Pavel. Then he realized if Pavel is likely to go to Mafia headquarters to do a last job, to kill the leader of the mob. And knowing that Pavel's current condition would be impossible, Soo Hyun rushed to catch up with the Fable, where really, Pavel with his rifle is stalking the head of the mafia group he targets. But because of her illness, Pavel couldn't even shoot the mafia leader. But because he wanted to finish his last task, Pavel went without hesitation to the headquarters of the mafia group. It was to finish off the mafia chief directly. But it didn't last long. Son of the mafia leader, named immediately noticed Pavel's presence, and instantly, old Pavel can be defeated. Where Karimov directly tortured Pavel to make Pavel open your mouth about who ordered it. Pavel is a very professional assassin. Of course, I don't want to tell the client or the person who ordered it, even if they get tortured. But, unexpectedly, Seo Hyun, who came there, and directly deal with the mafia leader, were the very contents. Seo Hyun managed to defeat the mafia leader, and told him to gather all his subordinates there. It was done, so that he can free the apple without any obstacles, because in reality, when the mafia chief's subordinates came to the place they were told, it turned out that the head of the mafia was already in a not even long after a big explosion occurred. Although unexpectedly, Tiger, the son of the mafia leader, apparently survived and was seen very much holding a grudge against Soo Hyun. while Soo Hyun, after successfully taking Vavel to their hideout, he then tried to treat Vavel's wounds, but because the injury was so severe, Apple also told Seo Hyun not to do it, where Vipel says if he apologizes for this has educated, Seo Hyun became a murderer who had no heart. And before his death, Papo also asked Seo Hyun in order to live like a normal human being to be happy. Then soon, Papa died. While in a different place, seen a guy named Philip, but not the lights, who is a colleague or scalper of Seo Hyun in work matters. Then he was visited by a woman who requested it to have Seo Hyun do a job for a big reward, where Philip, who knew Seo Hyun is grieving the loss of Pavel, then told the woman if Seo Hyun won't accept the job. But the woman also said if Seo Hyun will accept the job, he asked, when he saw the photos he prepared. Philip, who did not understand, then gave it to Seo and gave the photo that the woman gave me. Seo Hyun was surprised by the photo Philip gave her, similar to the photo given by the previous but before that, Philip told Seo Hyun to leave immediately, first from where it is now, because the mafia group led by Karimov was being... Seo Hyun is looking for revenge. For that, Seo Hyun first left to avoid the pursuit of the Karimov, where, after that, Seo Hyun asked again, what mission is requested by the woman who provided the photo. Billy also explained, if Seo Hyun had to kill 6 targets, and if you successfully execute every single target, the woman will send you another photo related to Seo Hyun's past. Hearing that, Seo Hyun, who now wants to know about his past, then agreed. That request, long story short, 2 years passed, where a man was seen hunting on the cliffs of the forest, to when that man would shoot a deer. Suddenly he was attacked by someone who was none other than Seo, until because of that, the man was instantly in Shin then moves on to a police detective officer, a woman named Hyun Jin, who holds the rank of inspector, who is investigating the man's death case. With the intuition it has, Hyun Jin can know if the man died earlier is a premeditated murder case, done by a professional. Until when I came home in the middle of the road, an unexpected meeting occurred, when Hyun Jin met Seo, who was trying to treat an injured deer. Hyun Jin, who saw Seo Hyun struggling to catch the deer with his abilities. Then he helped Seo Hyun to sedate the deer, even used his scarf to wrap wounds from deer. But a good act done. Hyun Jin is not appreciated by Seo Hyun at all, because Seo Hyun has an antisocial personality. Hyun Jin, who didn't know, it was of course very furious with Seo Hyun's attitude to him, and said Seo Hyun should be thanking him. But Seo Hyun didn't seem to care and instead gave a business card. If Hyun Jin wants to take his scarf, Seo Hyun himself is now opening a veterinary medicine clinic, and lived in a building he rented from a girl named Selji. Selji himself was an orphan, but he has a lot of legacy, including the multi-story building that Seo Hyun rented. It was all from his late grandfather who died as a result of being killed, where even though Seo Hyun is always ignorant, and as if he didn't care about Selji, but Selji always tries to get close to Seo. While Hyun Jin continues to investigate the man's death case because it feels, if it relates to the murder victims, committed by the same murderer, because he had seen a notebook written by one of the victims. But what Hyun Jin said? Of course, none of the police officers believed him, because all the victims that Hyun Jin mentioned all have different suspects. And the victims' no single bond can prove the theory. Hyun Jin was right, even more so. Now, the police have found the suspected of killing the man earlier, but even so, Hyun Jin still believes in what he has been investigating so far. Until shortly. The police arrested the man suspected of killing the man, which this man was a drug addict who owned a restaurant with his wife And the restaurant is always visited by Seo, as if everything was planned carefully by Seo. After the assassination task is completed, So Yoon then gets a photo about his past, with full curiosity. So Yoon tried to come to the house, even though their Yoon doesn't remember anything about the house. Even there! So Hyun's life was threatened when suddenly a bomb exploded. Luckily, with his experience, So Hyun managed to survive. So Hyun realized if the person who ordered it was a very dangerous person, so Yoon gets the next target to finish off. So Yoon also realized that the next target was the woman he met while trying to save a deer. That is Hyun Jin. And as he prepares to do his job, suddenly Hyun Jin even came to the place, so Hyun brought a cat that was injured because it accidentally hit. So Hyun, who saw it instead, ignored his duty and immediately treated the cat that Hyun Jin brought. And this is where their closeness started, because it looks. Hyun Jin has a little fascination with Seo Yoon's personality is very cold. Although actually Seo is a very creepy, personal, who are now targeting Hyun Jin to get photos about his past that he had collected for photos. The next day, Hyun Jin was seen coming to the building belonging to Seo. The goal is to find a new place to live. Ji Sel, who sees if Hyun Jin has an interest in Seo, looks bitchy and unfriendly to Hyun Jin too. Hyun Jin did not rent his building, but Hyun Jin is even more want to live there because it feels if the place is very strategic for him. Until the next day, it turned out to be a young Seolgi has its own issues, where his relatives or his uncles apparently eyeing Seolgi because of the inheritance owned Seolgi. When Seogi gets kidnapped by one of his uncles, luckily their Seo Yoon saw that, and when Seo Yoon will act, suddenly he was stopped by Hyun Jin, who asked Seo Yoon to shut up because he was the one who would beat up Uncle Seo Guy with his subordinates. Until there was a little struggle there. Hyun Jin proudly feels he can beat everyone all by yourself without knowing very deftly. So Hyun helped him. Secretly Shin then moved to a man who seems to have great power and influence named Jae-won, where Jae-won is the father of Hyun Jin, who seemed to have a fascination with the victims. Murders committed by So Hyun. I don't know what the connection is, but clearly he has something. Back to Hyun Jin, who met Seo Yoon again, where even though Hyun Jin always tries to be friendly to Seo, but Seo Yoon always ignored it, even looked ignorant. But Seo Yoon's cold attitude made Hyun Jin even more curious. Made Hyun Jin try to approach Seo, even if they never really considered it. Fortunately, Hyun Jin has a cat that is still being treated at Seo Yoon's place, and it gave him a reason to come see where they're. So Yoon, who still doesn't understand why Hyun Jin helped Seolgi, and ask you that because, according to him, foreigners like Hyun Jin, why bother helping the Seolgi he just met? Hyun Jin, who heard the question, tried to answer by saying if it was all his responsibility as a police officer. And this time, Hyun Jin, who asked back about Seo Yoon's relationship with Seolgi, because after what happened, Hyun Jin knows if Seolgi is an orphan who has a very large inheritance, and their relatives tried to take the inheritance. But before Seo Yoon answered, it turns out that the GI cell has been listening to the conversation between Hyun Jin and Seo, where Seo Guy immediately angry with Hyun Jin because you feel like you're interfering in his affairs. Hyun Jin, who doesn't want any misunderstandings, then trying to go after Seogi to explain everything. But Seogi, who was already emotional, even said harshly to Hyun Jin. After that, So Hyun then came and told Hyun Jin if what Hyun Jin did about GI cells was a mistake, because everyone has a secret that is not want to be known or interfered with by others, makes Hyun Jin feel in the corner. Even though the intention is good, is to help Seo. The next day, apparently Seog feel guilty for saying harshly to Hyun Jin, who has good intentions, want to help her. For that, So Hyun suggested Seogi to apologize to Hyun Jin, while Hyun Jin himself is now working on a case that involved a street gang and Russian mafia suspected of human trafficking. and he must immediately find evidence so that the police can take action to arrest them. Until Hyun Jin gets a call that turns out to be from his adoptive mother. That looks heavy. Hyun Jin was so scared because his adoptive mother is very overprotective of Hyun Jin, where this foster mom... Actually, Hyun Jin is a ballet dancer like himself. But Hyun Jin suddenly entered the police academy instead because of something that hasn't been revealed. Even though Hyun Jin was adopted by a rich man, but his life seems unhappy. Because always get the pressure to be what the parents ask. And it was a trauma for Hyun Jin. After meeting his mom, Hyun Jin then came back to the clinic, Seo Hyun, to see the cat that was there. Because he felt his day was chaotic because he had to see his mother. Hyun Jin then asked Seo Hyun accompany him on shooting practice, and it was agreed by Seo as a sense of apology for cornering Hyun Jin yesterday. Which of course, during shooting practice, Seo Hyun pretended she couldn't do it. Until after that, Hyun Jin also thanked Seo Hyun, who wanted to accompany him today when his feelings are in turmoil. But Seo Hyun just didn't understand what to say. After that, Seo Hyun, who returned to his clinic, got a message from Philip, which of course it's very strange, because they never did. Until when Seo Hyun asked Philip directly, Philip also responded, if the possibility it was done by Karameb, who hijacked his phone to search for Seo Hyun's whereabouts, make Seo Hyun furious, and directly have Philip give the location of Karimab now, where it turned out the Karamab was at the headquarters of a street gang who happened to be spied on by Hyun Jin, because they thought there was a crime of human trafficking there. But Hyun Jin's disguise was exposed, so the gangsters immediately arrested Hyun Jin. Luckily, Seo Hyun secretly helped Hyun Jin and let him be free. And soon the other police officers arrived. Hyun Jin himself then chases Karameb and manages to chase him, the one where Hyun Jin pointed a gun at Karameb to surrender. But it turns out that tigers have faster shooting skills, put Hyun Jin in danger. But suddenly, Seo Hyun came back and immediately saved Hyun Jin. Hyun Jin, who didn't know if it was then instead pointed his gun at Seo, making Karimo escape. But when Hyun Jin let his guard down, Seo Hyun immediately went to chase the for not daring to harass him when Karimab will run away using a car. So you swiftly went straight in to kill the and there was an act of hitting each other in the car. But the tiger utilized that car by trying to crash it to small children. Made Seo Hyun slam the steering wheel to Shine, kid who's about to get hit by, and because of that, the tiger was again able to escape from Seo Hyun's pursuit. After that, Hyun Jin asked his colleague to check the CC about the person who protected her earlier, and he also found the fact if it's as if the person acted alone. Hyun Jin wondered who that person was. But unexpectedly, Philip's headquarters was known to Scaramup's subordinates, and immediately took Philip to get the location of until the night Hyun Jin came back to Seo Hyun's place, where this time Hyun Jin brought a birthday cake. It was his childhood friend's birthday. So Yoon Hoon now has an affinity with Hyun Jin, was seen letting Hyun Jin do his thing. Even so, Yu, who is famous when cold, I want to accompany Hyun Jin to eat the cake together. Where, in that moment, Hyun Jin asked if Seo Hyun had a childhood friend like him. Seo Hyun, who remembered, forgot, then said, if he had a childhood friend like Hyun Jin, but what he remembers, his friend always gave him a paper in what shape? Until in the middle of the pouring rain, there was awkwardness between them. After that, Seo Hyun seemed to forget his duty to kill Hyun Jin, because it feels Hyun Jin is a good person besides Sogi, who is close to him. The closeness of Seo Hyun and also Hyun Jin happened again when they both visited the son of the mother who owns their regular food stall, who almost fell victim to gangster human trafficking. Streetwear there Seo Hyun, who saw the wound on Hyun Jin's face, advised Hyun Jin to treat the wound because it would scar. Hyun Jin, who heard it, just smiled, because he didn't expect. If cold people like Seo Hyun still pay attention to things like that, Shin then moved to Juan, who was with his partner, where it turned out all the murders were apparently related to each other. Where it was related to her past with a man named Hyun Woo, his own friend, where in the past, Hyun Woo, who realized if the company J1 developed is extremely threatening to the lives of children, then decided to get out. But because of his greed and not want to be known by others about the company's illegal business, Yang, Hyun Woo's family and Hyun Woo himself. But Woo managed to survive until now, and J1 thinks if all the serial killers that happened, it was Yoonu himself wanted revenge because all the victims was a witness who knew the murder of Hyun Woo's family. And if it's true, J1 is afraid that his next target will be him. He told his partner to find Hyun Woo and get ahead of Hyun Woo. While in his clinic, So Hyun is seen being visited by Hyun Jin's mother, which is of course to ask to So Hyun to no longer be close to Hyun Jin and promise to give whatever money So Hyun asked for, if you want to do that. Seo Yoon, who doesn't want to deal with the mother, then promised to obey the wishes of the mother. But he did not want to accept the money given by Hyun Jin's mother until the problem will come back. Because now, the Karamov has managed to get the location of So Hyun after torture Philip to get So Hyun's location. While Hyun Jin, who just returned to his residence, made surprised that all of his home decorations were already different. And he realized if his mother did all that, until when Hyun Jin wanted to ask what his mother meant to do that, his mother even talked about Seo Yoon, who he had come to. Hyun Jin, who knew the nature of his mother, then immediately rushed, "Meet Seo Yoon, because I feel that his mother definitely do something." But Seo Yoon didn't say anything, and just tell Hyun Jin to sit down, where Seo Yoon then treated Hyun Jin's wound. But unexpectedly, when Seo Yoon looked outside, he was surprised when he saw the day of the move that was there. The next day, closeness is now established between Hyun Jin and also Se. The two seemed to get along with each other when trying the game, until Hyun Jin saw a scar on the forehead, which reminds me of Hyun Jin with a boy who is the only key pain about his senior's death. But Selgi, that seems not to want others to know with the scar. Then he left Hyun Jin. Seo Yoon himself, after last night visited by then believed that Karimov's target is Hyun Jin. For that, Seo Yoon also secretly followed Hyun Jin to ensure his safety, but it turned out that Seo Yoon's prediction was wrong. Karimov is none other than make So Hyun go straight to school, Selgi, to ensure Selgi's safety. But apparently, there was no tiger. For that, So Hyun also gave a whistle to Selgi, and if something bad happens, then the Solji should blow it out immediately. Selgi, who doesn't understand all that, instead made the whistle a toy. So Hyun kept coming even though there was no problem whatsoever. And it continues to be repeated by until unexpectedly came Karamov, who immediately attacked Selgi with all your might. Selgi was trying to blow the whistle given by but it couldn't be done because Karamov held him back. But suddenly Seo Yoon came and immediately protected Seo. See the wounds received Selgi, so Hyun was angry and intended to kill the tiger for not daring to harass the people he loves. But seeing the Selgi who felt the trauma again, So Yoon didn't do it and let Karimov escape, because they prefer to save Selgi to be taken to the hospital. But it turned out that, without Karimov expecting, Seo Yoon didn't put a tracking device in her clothes. Make Seo Yoon know Karimov's current location, where the spa makes sure if Seolji is okay. Seo Yoon immediately rushed to hunt the tiger, where the ninja tub very skillfully, as So Hyun is already at Karamov headquarters, even directly pointed guns at Karamov. Karamov, who knows what kind of person Seo Yoon is, begging Seo Yoon not to finish him off. But because Karimov dared not harass those closest to him, without mercy, Seo Yoon immediately shot Karimov's leg and will execute him. But Karamov said, if he knows Seo Yoon's past, and if Seo Yoon didn't kill him, then Karamov will tell you everything. Until the innate Karamoon, who tried to attack Seo, However, it's not a problem for Seo Hyun, who is already in hunter mode. And after eliminating Karamov's subordinates, Seo Hyun pointed his gun at Karamov again. Up to when Karamov would say, Seo Hyun immediately pushed Karamov's head. Along with that, apparently, remember the dark past that always makes him tormented is the death of his grandfather before himself. And at that time, the man who killed his grandfather was none other than and who knows who ordered Favel. But the obvious, Favel felt uneasy after executing his grandfather. He felt that there was a witness who could find out his identity. Favel then returned to kill the witness, who turns out to be a guy who works as a journalist. At the time, he was investigating the case of Hyun Wook's disappearance, where male journalists apparently have a connection with Hyun Jin. That time, Favel actually, too, intended to kill Selji, who happened to be there. But Pavel was prevented by because Soo Hyun thinks if Selji is still small, that may not be able to tell Favel identity. The little Solji saw if the man who helped her was It comes back after 9 years. But somehow, Solji kept all that a secret. Even now, he considers Seo Hyun as his brother. The next day, when Hyun Jin was with Seo, Hyun Jin then gets a call from his police partner if the Karamab, the man they were searching for, was found dead at the docks, where Hyun Jin immediately rushed to the scene. Dark so surprised, when looking at the condition of Karamov's body, were killed by being shot, makes Hyun Jin wonder, who is the man who has killed a dangerous man like Karimov? Cause of identification Karimov was killed by someone very professional. Until after that, Hyun Jin then tried to contact the Selgi. He saw it was bad. But when Selgi raised Hyun Jin's judgment, Seo Hyun hurriedly came over to sit. And they also talked about the desire to delete marks of a wound on his forehead, because Selgi wanted to completely forget the bad memories of the sign. And the conversation between Selgi and Soo Hyun turns out heard by Hyun Jin, because of the call he had previously made to has not been turned off. Create. Hyun Jin was curious about the desire of the wound marks on his forehead. For that, Hyun Jin. He then contacted the police informant to find out genealogy of all families from cause this time, Hyun Jin feels if Selgi was a young child who was the only witness to the journalist's death, acquaintances who during this he was looking for. While Seo Hyun was at his clinic, he was shocked by the appearance of someone who turned out to be, it was Philip's acquaintances after being kidnapped and tortured by Karimov's subordinates. Philip is now asking so that Seo Hyun would let her stay at his place, because he feels his life is now increasingly threatened after Karimov died. Seo Hyun, who had no other choice, ultimately allowed Philip stayed at his place and introduced Phillips to Selgi Shin, then moved to Jae-won, who was seen torturing his subordinates, because apparently Hyun Woo, the man he tried to eliminate in the past, is still alive. Even Jae-won did not hesitate to threaten his subordinates because of his work during Fortunately, his female assistant calms Jae-won into handing over business Hyun Woo to him. While in the police station, Hyun Jin, who keeps trying, looking for clues about the man in the mask who helped her. Then his supervisor taught Hyun Jin to meet with a new prosecutor in charge in their territory. Hyun Jin, who feels he has no business with the new prosecutor. It was initially clear if it wasn't necessary, but when his superiors pleaded, Hyun Jin was forced to obey the order. And when it met, apparently the new prosecutor behaved a little strange, because even cool playing games makes Hyun Jin upset. Then went back to his office to go back, look for clues about who the masked man is. The next day, as usual, Hyun Jin met Seo Hyun again, where this time, Seo Hyun can see if Hyun Jin is a woman who is not only Yukai, but also has a good nature, because he did not hesitate to help mothers who are selling vegetables. And Seo Hyun is even more curious about the current Hyun Jin. Secretly, Seo Hyun always pay attention to Hyun Jin, who always smiles, as if they don't have the burden of life. Even so, Hyun also gave gifts in the form of cat toys, for knowing if a cat that Hyun Jin took care of always broke the plate. It turns out that such a simple thing means a lot to Hyun Jin, because he was always smiling. When remembering when So Hyun gave the gift to her, make Seogi, who was now at home, Hyun Jin, feel astonished because Hyun Jin smiled to himself. And when the night falls, now their feelings seem to have bound each other, where each of them thinks of the other. Until Seo Yoon's reverie stopped when Phillips provided a photograph of target that Seo Yoon should execute next, which this time So Hyun had to completely eliminate the person, not like yesterday. And that target is a politician who are going to run in the upcoming elections. So Hyun, who now realized if all the targets given by people who imitate them are always pertaining to his past, then try to dig up information about the target first in disguise. Where Sahyun then gets the information. If the politician, the target, is an acquaintance of Jaewon, to that utilize him being a veterinarian, so Hyun also entered the politician's house. He was looking for a veterinarian with the abilities that Soyeon had. Soyeon can easily enter the politician's room. The target is to place a bugging device and took some documents in the politician's safe. While in the police station, Hyun is very I want to know who killed Karimov. Then went to the forensic doctor who examined the body of the Karima, where Hyun Jin discovered a new fact, that apparently wounds received Karimov as well as a shot that made him the exact same with a victim, second of the serial murder victims investigated by Hyun Jin. Therefore, Hyun Jin concludes that the serial killer is none other than was the man in the mask who had rescued her. Until Hyun Jin was surprised by the arrival of the prosecutor named Hyun Jin, who invites Hyun Jin to eat. Of course, the invitation to eat was immediately rejected by Hyun Jin, but when the prosecutor said if he has the information Hyun Jin wants about what he was looking for, Hyun Jin was forced to accept Hyun Jae's invitation, but Hyun Jae drank too much, making the information Hyun Jin wanted he couldn't get. But even so, Hyun Jin, who has a good nature, still took Hyun Jae out of the restaurant in sight. If this Hyun Jae has an interest in Hyun Jin, where when they shake hands, it was seen by So Hyun, made So Hyun a little jealous to see Hyun Jin approaching him. Seo Yoon was cold to Phillips again, even though Phillips has tried to prepare food for Seo. The next day, I see what Yoon Jae said about him having the information Yoon Jin was looking for is true. Because when Yoon Jin arrived at her office, her colleague then gave her a file from Yoon Jae, and when Hyun Jin read it, turns out all the victims of the serial murders related to witnesses of the fire that occurred to Hyun Woo in the past. And all that too related to an orphanage where Hyun Jin used to live in a different place. Seo Yoon, who looks still upset. He then received information from Phillips, if after Phillips, looking for information from the files that Seo Yoon brought from politicians. Their target himself discovered the fact. If that politician used to work in an orphanage, with that information, Soyeon then rushed to the orphanage to figure out something that might pertaining to his past. That Soyeon unexpectedly, Hyun Jin came to the orphanage. Which one is there? Hyun Jin remembers all the bad memories that happened to him when living in that orphanage. While after going into foster care, Seo Yoon then, little by little remembering his past, who apparently used to live there too, where he has a friend, woman who always helped him by giving a letter in the form of a paper plane. But because the orphanage was abandoned for so long, so Hyun didn't find any clues other than a little the memory he remembered until there. So Hyun realized if anyone other than himself was in the orphanage, that right now, and when looking at it, was Hyun Jin, who was seen keeping something behind a brick, that there used to be a place. So Hyun always gets letters from his childhood friend. Realizing that Hyun Jin has an attachment to his past, so Hyun also tried to follow Hyun Jin when Hyun Jin came home, but the action was almost caught. So Hyun was forced to stay away from Hyun Jin until when Hyun Jin got to his place. He accidentally saw a motorcycle, the same one he saw near the orphanage earlier and on the road. For that, Hyun Jin then asked the owner of the motorcycle to SEO. And SEOGI also said if the bike belongs to Sohee, made Hyun Jin realize if it might be so. Hyun is also a person from an orphanage like himself. To make sure that Hyun Jin also asked for help to persuade Seo wanted to come over to his place to eat together, where Hyun Jin's suspicions about Seo Yoon were answered when Seo Yoon was very interested in airplane paper he made with the same writing as before. So Hyun himself now realizes that Hyun Jin was a childhood friend back in the orphanage, but it made Phillips advise So Hyun to leave immediately because there's a possibility if Hyun Jin deliberately did it was to trap So Hyun into knowing So Hyun's identity as a contract killer. But So Hyun feels that now he will face everything, even though it was really a trap for him. Because So Hyun himself, I want to know who are the people who tried to kill him when he was a child. For that, So Hyun should be able to seek additional information from politicians. Target C, who used to work in foster care, where after storing the bugging device, Seo Yoon regained the dark reality when the politician who became the target was talking to someone in his room about the secret he hid from the children in the orphanage. Because by continuing to keep that secret, he can get the success he is now. Until the politician's father saw the safe open. He immediately panicked and scolded his subordinates because the documents that were in it is something very important to him. But when it saw if the documents were still there, the politician immediately calmed down and said, if the documents, it was the key to her being alive to this day. So Yoon, who heard it, then realized if there's someone more powerful and feared, related to the big secret about the orphanage where he used to be. And that person is none other than Hyun Jin's adoptive father. Where is Jadwan? It turns out that the politician's father was still alive for having important documents regarding his secret, even though the truth is he could easily eliminate the father of the politician, because the politician's father's subordinates actually work for him. Where now Juwan told his subordinate to do something. That is eliminating an orphanage caregiver who used to carry one of the children, because Guwon just found the location now. While at his clinic, So Yoon is visited by Hyun Jin, who has realized if so, Yoon was his childhood friend, but when Hyun, the genie, wants to talk about it, so Hyun had to leave first, because he had business to attend to with Fina. For that, Hyun Jin asked if he would wait for Seo Yoon at a restaurant, and it turns out Seo Yoon's goal this time was to meet Jaewon's subordinates earlier. The goal is to find more information. But when Seo Yoon confronted that person, bad memories come back to Seo Yoon, because it turns out this Jaehoon subordinate was one of the orphanage officers who used to torment him all the time. And because of that, there was a little scuffle between them. But so Hyun had to run away first because the male colleague had come. Where after remembering information about the man earlier, Phillips, with its ability to succeed, finds someone who might be able to help. So Hyun, about her at the orphanage, a nanny who now lives alone. But from the information Phillips got, the nanny had a flaw of not being able to speak. Make So Hyun have to ignore. Hyun Jin was waiting for her at the restaurant, but Seo Yoon's arrival to the nanny's house frightened the nanny, even though Seo Yoon said if he was a child who survived, but still, the mother still believed. But Seo Yoon tried to convince the mother by slightly fixing his house. Until after that, So Hyun, then Hyun Jin is still waiting for him at the restaurant. At first they were always talking without any constraints, now even look awkward with each other. In that moment, So Hyun also asked about things Hyun Jin remembers while living in an orphanage. Upbringing first, where Hyun Jin told if at that time was the scariest moment for him. Like, be in hell. Until someone comes and changes it for the better. His childhood friend who always exchanged letters, through airplane-shaped paper. After that, So Hyun kept thinking about the attachment, Hyun Jin, about her life-changing self. Hyun Jin, but Philip said something. If their client comes back in contact, so Hyun carried out his duty of executing the politician. Made So Hyun realize if his life can't go back to normal life as his heart desires now is with Hyun Jin. Until So Hyun also got a call from the nanny mother he came to earlier. But because the mother couldn't speak, So Hyun can only get information through gestures. So Jung, before getting to the nanny's place, the stock exchange asked about him being named with the number 8. 8, where the nanny found out. If that person is Seo Hyun tried to get to the mother's place as soon as possible. But suddenly, Gyawor's subordinates came to execute none other than the nanny's mother. Where when So Hyun gets there, he only found the mother's phone that had fallen. So Hyun failed to get information about him again. While Hyun Jin himself finally get information about the background of the cell, where what is suspected about was the witness girl he had been looking for all along, is true. Cause Hyun Jin immediately came to Cell G to ask everything. But even scared and do not want to tell about the incident. Even though Hyun Jin kept begging until Seo Hyun came to ask Hyun Jin not to press Selgi about it all, and asked Hyun Jin to give you some time. But Hyun Jin said if he has been patient all this time and waiting for information, that for 9 years to be able to uncover everything. Where? After that, Hyun Jin then went to the grave of the man told earlier, which turned out to be it's Hyun Jin's lover. So Hyun, who secretly followed Hyun Jin, then went to the man's grave after Hyun Jin left. And he realized if the man was a Vavel victim when doing errands with her in a different place. Phillips was again contacted by his client who asked, why hasn't Seo Hyun executed the politician yet? And if we don't do that, client who threatened to do something to see, and also Phillips pro twist was given, because it turns out that the client who always tells So Hyun to execute the target, his target to get photos of So Hyun's past, none other than was Jaewon's assistant, who turned out to be siding with Yoon, who is now in disguise making the garden, and was close to So Hyun's own residence. The next day, after feeling that you're pressing too hard, Hyun then called Selji to take her for a walk with Seo Hyun's pet dog, which is why their relationship was originally strained back to being close. In that moment, Selgi, who wonder why Hyun Jin is so eager to know about death, his former lover, had wondered, who realized that the man meant a lot to Hyun Jin. Because first, Hyun Jin always felt frightened and depressed by his adoptive mother. But because of the presence of her lover, make Hyun Jin dare to step alone and make his own choices, that is to become a police officer, while Zoyer himself is now preparing to execute the politician, where with his abilities as a paid scavenger with ease. So Hyun was already in the politician's father's room to execute him, but when he was about to kill the politician's father, suddenly a little boy came. So Hyun didn't do that and went straight from there.
그 피가 우리 손에 묻었다는 일로 지난 19년 동안 어땠냐?
Until, because of that, Hyunmoo, the client, feels angry and told his assistant to teach a lesson to So Hyun in order to comply with the agreement they've made. While So Hyun himself continues to be forced by Philip to complete his task of executing the father of the politician. Cause if it's not done, then something bad will happen to them. But Seo Hyun, who has no desire to become an assassin, ask Phillips in order to cancel everything they've agreed with their client. Where Phillips was afraid of threat, his client said to give Seo Hyun time because he will try to persuade Seo Hyun to carry out his duty of executing the politician. For that, his client then gave back a photograph to Phillips to persuade Seo Hyun with the photo, because according to his client, that photo is an important part of Seo Hyun's past. But after Phillips gave the photo, So Hyun, who now no longer wants to be told to do the task, killing from his clients, instead asked Phillips to track their client's place, because if their threats were properly carried out, then So Hyun himself will come to his clients to make calculation. Where after that, So Hyun then came to the location of the photo that his client gave him earlier, who delivered him to a funeral, which is where it turns out that the girl in the photo was the original Hyun Jin, who had died from his illness. Seo Hyun then recalled the memories when he met first time with that girl, and he was the one who gave her the name Seo. Until that moment, because of the girl's request, they also took a photo with the girl's mother, and it turns out that the reason Hyun Jin was adopted because he has a resemblance to a girl. It seemed very dear to his mother. So Hyun, who felt his client was very knowing about his past as well as all the secrets that happened in foster care, telling Phillips to track down immediately and find out who his clients really were all along, because they managed to find out who the identity of their clients, then all the information about his past, it will be easily revealed. And don't bother to obey their orders anymore. Phillips had no other choice than trying to find the identity of his client, while Hyun himself, now he's with his police partner, was secretly watching the politician. Because I feel like something bad is going to happen to him, until Hyun Jin gets a call from sketch expert police who have finished drawing sketches of the characteristics, the man in the mask. At first, Hyun Jin was not at all found an oddity in the sketch given to him, until when he met Hyun Jin also realized if any of the sketches that have been drawn, it was someone he knew who was none other than where after recalling about Hyun Jin then rushed to Seo Hyun's clinic, and I immediately looked for something there related to Seo Hyun's actions. But what Hyun Jin was looking for, he couldn't find, because So Hyun came there first. Hyun Jin, who doesn't want to be suspected, then pretending that he was looking for medicine for his cat. And when So Hyun was about to leave, Hyun Jin also asked, who is So Hyun really, as well as who is the person who has adopted So Hyun from the orphanage, where the question was only answered by Seo Hyun by saying, if the adoptive parents are both dead very long. Seo Hyun then left because he had to do something. It was then used by Hyun Jin to enter Seo Hyun's room, and back looking for evidence about Seo was the man in the mask. But Hyun Jin's action failed again, because Seo Hyun who came back, and apparently Seo Hyun already realized if Hyun Jin was looking for something in his place, Hyun Jin, who already feels sure that Seo is the man wearing a mask, then contacted a police informant to looking for all information about Seo. So Yoon is walking, then get a call that is not unexpected from a client who always orders him to execute his target, that is Hyun Woo, where because So Hyun no longer obeyed his orders, Hyun Woo also threatened So Hyun would kill the people closest to So Hyun. Seo Hyun, who heard it at first, didn't care at all, because he felt he was alive just for find out about his past, and that everyone around him is worthless. But when you see, if the target now is Hyun Jin, so Hyun immediately ran to save. Hyun Jin will be hit by Hyun Woo, where Seo Hyun with very deceitful process trying to save Hyun Jin. Seo Hyun, who feels he can't just escape, because it will only endanger those closest to him, then plan to immediately execute the politician who became. Even now, Seo Hyun is very angry, seen ignoring Phillips, his friend, not to execute the politician in a public place. This will only endanger So Hyun himself. But Seo Hyun, who was fed up with everything, ignored Phillips' advice, where he then went to immediately execute the Kang politician. It turns out he is now campaigning, as well as there is Hyun Jin, along with his fellow policemen on duty to secure the Kang politician. But with his experience, So Hyun was seen already on the roof of the building to make it easier for him to execute the politician, using a biking. But when Seo Hyun was about to fire his rifle, suddenly the feeling of doubt returned Seo Hyun felt. but when remembering those closest to him will be in danger. He doesn't execute politicians. So Yoon also made up his mind and immediately retreated the politician Kong. Until inalahi. Make the atmosphere there, rowdy. Hyun Jin, who was there, then tried to see the situation. And while confirming that the politician Kang had been sold, Hyun Jin then looked around, because I believe that the person who killed the Kong politician still be there. Where Hyun Jin then saw the man in the mask, he immediately chased after. Until, in the end, Hyun Jin can chase Seo Yoon and point his weapon so that Seo Yoon gave up on good terms. In that moment, Hyun Jin, who was very curious about the identity of the scavenger, tried to open his mask. But it is used so Hyun to be able to run by handcuffing Hyun Jin to a fence. On the other side, Jae-won, who feels murderous politician's attitude, is done by his subordinates. Look emotional for doing it in a crowd. When he found out that it was done by someone else, Jae-yeon also told his subordinates to immediately eliminate the evidence. His involvement, while Hyun Jin in his office looks frustrated because he failed, caught the man in the mask until he remembered previous words of Seoul, who said goodbye to go to an animal hospital. Hyun Jin, who felt that the man in the mask was then rushed to the animal hospital to make sure whether Seo Yoon was there or not. Upon arrival, Hyun Jin's suspicions on Seo Yoon, he can prove Seo Yoon was really there. Even the hospital manager said if Seo Yoon had been there about 2 hours ago, with all of So Yeon's alibis absolutely perfect, Hyun Jin can no longer suspect So Yeon. In fact, So Yeon just got to the animal hospital, and the manager that spoke to Hyun Jin was actually told by So Yeon himself the next day, because the murder of the politician was committed in public. The prosecution then formed a joint special team between the police and also the prosecutor's office, where the combined team members were filled by Hyun Jin and also Hyun Jin, where Hyun Jin confidently said, if the politician's death case relating to a series of serial killings that during this he had. For that task, they must immediately match various evidence in order for the main suspect to be revealed. Shin then, Jae-won, who was with the hospital manager, where because of the murder of the politician earlier, it scared the manager because there were only 2 of them left. For that, the manager asked Jae-won in order to act immediately before they become their next victims. Up there, Jae-won was visited by his subordinates who he had tortured and he kicked out for incompetence. Take care of Yeonu. It turned out that the arrival of his subordinate to provide important information about the assistant, the girl, Yoon Ji, because after he finds out, apparently, Yoon Ji is the one who is likely in cahoots with Hyun Woo, but their Gyeon did not immediately believe and asked his subordinates to provide hard evidence regarding the information. Young Gi Islam was his assistant for 19 years. Yoon Ji alone was seen waiting for Phillips to discuss something. But it didn't happen, because Phillips was taken by loan sharks, which turns out to be the Phillips. It has a problem because it always borrows money from loan sharks, or committee, to play gambling. Fortunately, so Hyun saw that and immediately helped Phillips, who was being beaten by loan sharks. So Hyun, who felt that Phillips was hiding something behind him, then ordered Phillips to track the clients, who always told him to commit murder. Until he was forced to, Phillips also obeyed So Hyun's orders. But when Phillips does that, suddenly their client even gave a photo of Hyun Jin. So Hyun panicked because it seemed as if his client already knew. Whatever, he will do. While Hyun Jin himself was in the autopsy room with Hyun Jae, where Hyun Jin this time gets information from the forensic doctor who handling the politician's body, that if the shooting hadn't happened, the politician will still die because someone secretly introduced poison to the politician's eye drops. Makes Hyun Jin and Hyun Jae feel if the murder case that happened to the politician, not only an ordinary serial killer, there is a conspiracy in it. Until when Hyun Jin is looking at the requested transaction, information about the death of the politician. She suddenly met a man who is Jaewon's confidant and Hyun Jin himself, remembering that the man is someone who used to always torture the kids in foster care. Traumatize Hyun Jin back, because that man was the one who always tortured her. Until, all of a sudden, Hyun Jin's adoptive mother called telling him to get out. Hyun Jin, who was scared because he was near the man earlier, went straight to see his foster mom, where Hyun Jin's adoptive mother, who has an excessive obsession with Hyun Jin, very worried to see the face. Hyun Jin was very pale with fear, because Hyun Jin's mother told Hyun Jin to follow her advice. He left a police force that he never approved. His mother had also prepared a high position in the company, which of course was again opposed by Hyun Jin, because being a cop was her wish, which turned out to be seen by So Hyun secretly. And when the mother left, So Hyun Rasu follows his mother, Hyun Jin, who is part of his past memories, arriving at the mother's house. Seo Yoon used her mask, then walked in secretly, where when inside the house, little by little, the memory of his past back he remembered. That one over there. Finally, Seo Yoon saw if Jaehwan is watching a video when a child was in surgery. Until when So Hyun was recording the evidence that Jaehwan did, himself almost caught when Jaehwan suddenly back into his office, where Seo Yoon then overheard Jaehwan's conversation, who was talking directly to someone about Jaehwan who hides kids like in foster care back in the day. In that moment, finally So Hyun remembered the clam incident when he was still in the orphanage, who decided to run away when one of the children told him about the atrocities committed by Jaehwan along with his Renganya baton. But at that time, Seo Yoon's escape was known, and he was hunted by Jaehwan and the others, until Jaehwan cruelly bumped into little Seo Yoon until she was unconscious, as well as after that. Jaehwan then put Seo Yoon in the bag and told Pavel to throw her overboard. Knowing and remembering all that, Seo Yoon then left there. And when it got to his clinic, Seo Yoon then met with Hyun Jin, who just got home, drank with his colleagues, recalling bad memories about his past. So Yoon then asked Hyun Jin about the past. Hyun Jin, after being adopted, where Hyun Jin told if he always pretended to be happy in front of his father and mother, lifted up for fear if she were to be sent back to the orphanage. But Hyun Jin said if he always tries to be strong, because he believed that his childhood friend always wanted him alive, happy. In that moment, Hyun Jin then came clean if he is very happy to be back with Seo Yoon, who has grown up and live a decent life. Hearing that, So Hyun also felt guilty in his heart because he lied to Hyun Jin. If he is actually someone who is not like Hyun Jin, imagine the next day, Hyun, who still don't understand the situation about the evidence he saw at Jaehwan's residence, then sends that video to his client, where when the video was sent, his client, who is Yoon, he immediately contacted Phillips to ask about it. But apparently now, Phillips' phone is already on Soo-yoon's land, where he directly introduced myself as a person hired by Yoon. So Hyun then threatened Yoon to tell you everything that Yoonji knew about the video, because if you don't, he will hunt Yoonji this time, if not. Tell him about the purpose of Jaewon always collecting children. Yoonji, who heard that, could only be silent, then later met Hyun Woo to tell everything that Soo-yoon knows. But Hyun Woo told Yoon he not to worry too much, because it was just a threat from Soo-yoon. Because if Soo-yoon was serious, he wouldn't say that, but will take direct action to hunt them down. Moreover, according to Hyun Woo, if the existence of So Hyun is their only ace that can destroy Jaewon. But Hyun Woo also told Yoon Jin if from now on he must be vigilant, because bad possibilities might happen soon. While at his clinic, So Hyun was seen visited by a GI. Want to talk to So Hyun about something? Where the GI sells, I have decided to talk about past events that he knows, to Hyun Jin and ask for advice too. Appa. Is it okay if he comes clean with Hyun Jin? Seo Yoon, who heard it, then told Selgi to follow his wishes. Although in the future, the consequences would be obvious. Understand what Soo-jun meant. Selgi then went to Hyun Jin, who invited him to eat, where Selgi said, if you will be frank with Hyun Jin. But he asked for time until he was ready to say everything. Hyun Jin, who understands the meaning of Selgi, yes, do whatever you choose. Because Hyun Jin realized if Selgi do, that has a reason. Because wanting to protect someone who's is so high on. After that, Hyun Jin with Hyun Jae then went to the politician's house to look for evidence. Until there, they get a clue. If the politician gets so scared and gets mad at Tae-suk, that is Jae-won's confidant. When someone once tried to steal documents from his safe, which is where the document, it has to do with kids that are in foster care. Therefore, Hyun Jin and Hyun Jae have a conclusion. If all the murders that happened were related to the orphanage. Until, shortly, Hyun Jin gets a call from his partner. If at the time of the politician's murder, Tae-suk seemed to throw something away. For that, Hyun Jin and also Hyun Jae then went to the place. It was to find the items that were thrown away. And it didn't take long. They also managed to find the items thrown away. And after checking it, it fits perfectly with the findings of poison in the eyes of the politician. With all that stuff, Hyun Jin then went back to examine Tae-suk as a suspect in the alleged murder of the politician. But when interrogating, Tae-suk instead asks Hyun Jin to give him a chance. Talking to Jae-won, Hyun Jin's adoptive father, himself, made Hyun Jin realize if all the murder cases that happened pertaining to his own foster father. Although there was no solid evidence of his father's involvement, Hyun Jin then goes to see Jae-won, his father, to ask directly about the old Hyun Woo suddenly disappeared. But of course, Jae-won did not give any information to Hyun Jin. Jae-won himself then went to the hospital to see the manager, where the goal was to make sure regarding Yoon, his assistant too. After checking his track record, Jae-won realized if Yoon-ji was the older brother of a subordinate who died when it used to be in foster care, but when it comes to telling Tae-suk to take care of Yoon-ji, suddenly Jae-won was shocked when he got a video message that showing evidence if a child is being operated on by their attending physician, which it turned out to be the active So-hyun himself, that unbeknownst to Jae-won already was in Jae-won's hospital. Back to Hyun Jin, where it turned out, even though he had found strong evidence of Tae's involvement, Suk-woo tried to kill the politician. That didn't seem to be enough to hold him back. Until when he and his partner were looking for other evidence. Hyun Jin gets a package in the form of past articles, who reported the discovery of a body in a building near the orphanage. But strangely, the news never went viral. Not even on the internet. For that, Hyun Jin then tried to meet the person who wrote the news, which is where the reporter who wrote the article says, if something related to foster care, it was like it was covered up. Even he had a bad thing. Because when writing that article, himself was immediately fired from his job, as if things related to the orphanage were always covered by the government. Hyun Jin, who just found out about it, then asked where the body was found, where the reporter said if it was at the top of the mountain that he marked with a ribbon. But when Hyun Jin asked for a search letter back regarding the discovery of the body, the police and prosecutor's office immediately refused to give it. But it's Hyun Jin who has been responsible, told his fellow colleagues to do an excavation back without letters. Orders in hang. Where was it when Hyun Jin and company were digging? He found something else. The body of a woman who did not. The other is the nanny who was killed by Tae-suk long ago. While So-hyun himself is now shouting to meet Yoon-ji in person to ask the question he had previously asked. But because Yoon-ji made an appointment with Jae-won on the spot, Yoon-ji also asked So-hyun to go first. Because if So-hyun continues to be there, then his identity as paid scavengers he hired will be revealed by Jae-won. But before leaving, Yoonji, I gave an information to Seo. If all the questions that Seo Yoon is looking for are in the video itself, and if Seo Yoon wants to know more about everything, then Seo Yoon must find out the location of the video was made. And Yoonji then gives a photo to Seo Yoon, who should see execution as the next target, which is the hospital manager from G. After that, Seo Yoon left, while Yoonji then meets Jae-won, where Jae-won already knew if Yoonji, his assistant, is a traitor, then tells his subordinates to take Yoongi somewhere. But Jae-won told Tae-soo to kill Yoonji first, because he had a plan to be able to fish Hyun-woo with Yoonji until when Jae-won was about to leave. He got a call from someone who turned out to be, it was So-yeon, whereas Seo Yoon, who already knows if Jae-won is her real father, then asked why Jae-won treated her so viciously and also attempted to kill him in the past. Jae-won very piksan? Ji-din said if Seo Yoon is a useless child for her. Even the existence of Seo Yoon even hinders everything he aspires to. So Hyun, who heard it, looked very emotional, then started his car, which turned out to be in front of Jae-won himself. Jae-won, who saw it, was immediately frightened, because So Hyun tried to hit his car, but when So Hyun's car was about to hit Jae-won, So Hyun then compared the steering wheel and just went and got just like that. While after finding the body of the nanny mother earlier, Hyun Jin then came to his house to look for a clue. The one over there, Hyun Jin even found a paper with Soo Yoon's name on it, as well as his cell phone number. While at his house, the harsh reality must be accepted against because apparently Phillips was his friend. Always communicate with the client without Seo Yoon's knowledge, because Phillips was paid secretly. Not only that, Seo Yoon just found out if Phillips is a person who provides information regarding his residence to the Karamuf. Seo Yoon angered and immediately kicked Phillips out. And after that, full of disappointment. So Hyun was visited by Hyun Jin with a paper he found at the nanny's house, where Hyun Jin thought, if so, Hyun was the one who killed the nanny mother, until he was forced to. So Hyun also told me everything. If he had time to meet the nanny mother, to seeking information regarding her past in the orphanage. And so, Hyun said, if he wasn't the one who killed the nanny mother. Hearing that, Hyun Jin also believes in So Hyun because he just found out about the mother. It was a former caregiver in an orphanage. After that, Hyun Jin then discussed all his findings with his colleagues. If he believes all the murders that happened during this, everything to do with the orphanage, where their assignment is this time, is to find documents belonging to the politician, or at least they should look for Hyun Woo's whereabouts, alive or dead, because Hyun Woo used to be the person in charge of the orphanage. For that, Hyun Jin asks Hyun Ji to come back to see Jae-won, his father, in hope that if Jae-won want to give him some information about Hyun, which Jae-won himself, with the hospital manager and also Tae-soo, happy to discuss about people who during this kills their colleagues, which one after matching that thing. They also concluded if it was done by Soo Yoon, one of the kids from the orphanage, should have died. And the person who told him was likely Hyun Woo. While Seo Yoon at his clinic, keep thinking about his clients who always knowing who the people close to him are. Where even though Seo Yoon already knew it was Yoon, but Seo Yoon felt if Yoonji doesn't work alone, and someone must have ordered Yoonji, until he also saw a flower pot that he bought at a florist. For that, Seo Yoon then came to the place, which is where Seo Yoon ended up meeting Hyunu. Even though Seo Yoon himself can't recognize if Hyunu is the one who always tells him to execute those who have been targeted, while Hyun Jin and Hyun Jae were seen returning to see Jae-won. But still, Jae-won didn't give Hyun Jin the information he needed, even if Hyun Jae has provided evidence that actually, they know the information they need. Jae-won threatens Hyun Jae and Hyun Jin will report it to their superiors. If he has violated the law, Hyun Jin, who thought it would happen, then told Hyun Jin to go because it feels if their actions to dig up information from the father, lifting it is useless and better looking for information elsewhere. Where Hyun Jin previously told his partner to find out the person who sent the articles about the discovery of bodies to him, was later told if they have managed to find the person, and that person is none other than Hyun Jin. But when Hyun Jin tried to contact Hyun Jin, his calls were unanswered. Hyun Jin is being held captive by Jae-won in a place. Hyun Woo realized that Hyun Jin was in danger, then sent an address to Seo Yoon saying if everything Seo Yoon was looking for was there, armed with that information. So Hyun immediately rushed, go to the address told by Hyun Woo, which turned out to be the location of Jae-won charming Hyun Jin. And coincidence, Jae-won is also there to interrogate Hyun Jin. But unexpectedly, Hyun Jin came there, whose arrival Hyun Jin is known by Jae-won's subordinates. Where after getting a report about Hyun Jin, who came there, full of panic, Jae-won also told his subordinates to immediately expel Hyun Jin, even if it means using force. Until shortly, Hyun Jin also shouted when Jae-won's subordinates tried to harm him. And it was heard by Seo Yoon, who did not expect. Even Hyun Jin was there, with full of worry. Seo Yoon also tried helping Hyun Jin, but Seo Yoon was a little caught off guard and didn't realize one of Jae-won's luggage would intend to stab him. Luckily, Hyun Jin sacrificed his body to protect Seo. Saw Hyun Jin hurt appear, Hyun then immediately contacted the police and ambulance until shortly, Hyun Jin was successfully taken to the hospital. And fortunately, it wasn't. Is seriously injured from this incident. While so, Hyun himself could only see from a distance about the condition. Hyun Jin, until Hyun Jae came to report, if at the scene earlier, he found nothing about Hyun Jin with his condition that is still not healed. I immediately woke up because I wanted to see for myself about the condition on the scene. Because OC Hyun Jin's existence is very important because it will unlock the secret that has been buried. Until the time on the scene, initially Hyun Jin and also Hyun Jae did not find any traces left by Hyun Jin, but when outside, Hyun Jin accidentally finds a bloody earring. That made him sure OC Hyun Ji was actually there last night to make sure that Hyun Jin, he asked his colleague to check the earrings and blood whether it matches OC Hyun Ji's DNA. Well, so Hyun himself, after last night's incident, he was really worried about Hyun Jin. For that, so Hyun was seen entering where Hyun Jin lived, the one over there. Hyun also see all the information that has been collected by Hyun Jin about serial killings during this time, where there. So Yoon sees one of the alleged names as the main prejudice. That is Hyun Woo. So Hyun, who until now has not known the real figure of Hyun Woo, then remember all the tasks of his clients, who then realized if during this time Hyun Woo, it was the client who always told him to execute the target. Until Soo-yoon's view, it was a flower pot similar to a flower pot in his clinic. After examining the pot, and so Hyun also found a recording device, and after that, so Hyun then went to his clinic to check the same pot, and when that pot was being destroyed, apparently, there was also a tracking device. Made Seo Yoon realize the reason all this time. Why? His clients always know all his movements with Hyun Jin. For that, so Hyun then rushed to the flower shop, knowing the owner of the flower shop is none other than Hyun Woo. Whereupon, arrival, so Hyun immediately threatened Hyun Woo for not daring to try to harm Hyun Jin. Before Hyun Woo, who could no longer dodge, said, if it happens, because so Hyun himself had broken the contract of their agreement. But now Hyun Woo says, if he was no longer dangerous, because Hyun Jin will get deeper, danger of having dared to harass Jae-hwan. So Hyun, who heard it, couldn't believe Hyun Woo's words, because Jae-hwan is the adoptive father of Hyun Jin himself. But Hyun Woo said, if a person like Jae-hwan wouldn't mind such a thing, because let alone eliminating adopted children. Killed So Hyun, who is his own son Jae-hwan, dared. Heard all that, So Hyun then asked about the fate. Kids that used to be in foster care. But Hyun Woo said, if Sayan wants to know all the answers, then Soyun has to first execute the hospital manager, make Seo Yoon emotional. But soon Selgi came. Make Seo Yoon not do something to you, and immediately took the Selgi away. Where Selgi this time frank if he actually knows. If Soo-yoon is the one who used to help her when Pavel intending to kill him, for that Selgi asks Seo Yoon to stop because Seo Yoon has been hurt so much and asks Seo Yoon to eliminate the other side. That is on him because according to Selgi, he loves Seo Yoon very much, who he knew as a kind veterinarian. After that, Seo Yoon, who did not expect if around him a lot of people treat him like humans, continue to think if he deserves all that. In the midst of his thoughts, so Hyun was surprised because Hyun Jin was already there. Where Hyun Jin said, if he really hopes, if so, Hyun came to see him when he was hospitalized. Hearing that, so Hyun just said, if he will take Hyun Jin to his place upon arrival, so Yoon-hoo will leave, prevented by Hyun Jin, who asked So-yoon to stay for a while because she had something to say. Where Hyun Jin said, if he is always worried every time I meet Seo Yoon in an unusual place, like what happened yesterday. So Yoon, who still doesn't want to come clean to Hyun Jin about why is he on the scene, then said, if when he happened to be there when Tan saved a man, stray dogs that were abandoned. Hyun Jin, who seemed unwilling to prolong his suspicions, he said he believed in Hyun's kindness. After that, so Yoon heard that Hyun Jin was looking for a coke. Hyun Ji then asked why Hyun Jin is so eager to find out where Hyun Ji is. Hearing that, at first Hyun Jin didn't seem to want to tell me about OC here. But in the end, Hyun Jin also said if he had to find the OC, immediately Hyun Jin to save the children. He had almost the same fate as the children. It made So Hyun a little confused by Hyun Jin's words. While at his house, we finally found out why Jaewon Win Empower Nen also became the mastermind behind the lost orphanage children. That thing was answered when Hyun Woo contacted Jaewon using a public phone, where with hatred. Hyun Woo, who hasn't talked to Jaewon for a long time, asked. Jaewon used to hug his wife and child, and until now, continues to act heinously by sacrificing children for money. Hearing that question, Jaewon also said, if it's not just about the money, but by him doing that, then those in power will kneel down to beg him, because he has spare parts, organs of the body that they need for their healing, with his family. Hearing that, Hyun Woo could not hold back his anger and promised, if soon, Chaewon will be rewarded for all heinous deeds, which during this he did the next day. So Hyun, who knew that Hyun Jin was still injured, seemed to have been waiting for Hyun Jin in front of his house. Where is the purpose? So Hyun did. It was a form of attention when Hyun Jin would go to work, and there, for the first time. So Hyun met Hyun Jae in person when picking up Hyun Jin. After that, Seo Yoon looks back to plan something for. Find out why he was treated unfairly by which is his father, because if it could be revealed, then Seo Yoon will know fate of those kids in the orphanage who had no information about them. While Hyun Jin himself, again, get new information from Hyun Jae about his father's company involvement from the disappearance of orphanage children. That is, if according to Kujan Jae, there were rumors they have to reveal about the children of foster care, which they are actually children from artificial insemination done by J1 Company, to take their organs and sell them to the rulers. Makes Hyun Jin feel disbelief if his adoptive father had committed such a heinous act. But Hyun Jae said, if all that was just a rumor, because there's no evidence of that yet. But Hyun, who previously did not understand the disappearance of children in foster care, in his heart believe, if it is a reality. Where, after getting that information, Hyun Jin seemed to want to know is true. If Jae-won, her foster dad, did all that Before that, Hyun Jin, along with his colleagues, secretly stole the CCTV cameras in his father's car, while Seo Yoon in his clinic, seen visited by Hyun Jin's mother. Hyun Jin's mother seems to already know the true identity of Seo, who once came to his house when the real Hyun Jin was still around, became the Selji who invited. Hyun Jin's mother went to his house to eat to be more familiar. Soon, Hyun Jin came, making the atmosphere warmer. But it seems to want to be spared by Seo Yoon himself, because he didn't deserve that kind of happiness. Hyun Jin, who saw Seo Yoon looks contemplative at his clinic. But Hyun Jin then gets a message from his colleague telling him if there is a strange video that his colleague found on CCTV anyway, Hyun Jin's father's car that they stole earlier. Where when Hyun Jin checked the video, Hyun Jin heard if his father was talking to someone that is which his father says if Seo Yoon was the biggest mistake he ever made, while in Jadlane's place. The Oshae Yoonji looks like he can untie the bonds that bind him. But when he was about to run away, Jejuin and his subordinates were outside and caught. Yoonji is back, where this time Jaewon also ordered his luggage to execute Choi Yoonji as a warning to Seo Yoon and Yoon, because now he already knows where Seo Yoon lives from. Back to Hyun Jin, who got the recording when the Hyunji was visited by someone before going missing, where from that video Hyun Jin saw if the person who met the Oki Hyunji is exactly the same as the person who almost hit Jaewon's car. Knowing it was Seo Yoon, Hyun Jin then went straight to Seo Yoon's clinic, where while on the way Hyun Jin got a call from a police informant that he told to find out about Seo Yoon's identity, which, according to the informant, if Seo Yoon never attended a veterinary education, hearing that made Hyun Jin even more convinced. If Seo Yoon was the one involved with all the murders, that happened until when I got to the clinic. Hyun Jin, who was looking for anything suspicious, at first I didn't find anything strange there. But when Seo Yoon's dog walked out of a door, he went straight into the door, and when inside, Hyun Jin was so surprised when he saw everything there. From the start of sophisticated tools and weaponry belonging to Seo, makes his anger to Seo Yoon even greater, because I feel if Seo was the one who had killed her lover long ago. But when Hyun Jin opened a drawer with a plane, the paper he always gave me first, to Seo Yoon in the orphanage. Hyun Jin also felt if Seo Yoon couldn't have done all that, made him hesitate to tell Yoon Jae about Seo Yoon's real identity as the assassin. And soon Seo Yoon came, where with full of question marks, Hyun Jin immediately asked about things that Seo Yoon has always done, and asked if Seo Yoon was the one who had killed her lover long ago. But before Seo Yoon answered all that, turns out, outside, Tae-suk along with his whining comes and is torturing Selji, so Hyun Huzot tried to help Sogi first, and asked Yoon Jin to take Sogi to a safe place, while he will face Tae-suk with his Renganya baton. Until soon the sound of police sirens was heard, making Tae-suk blurred, even though the voice was sounded by Phillips. But after that, So Hyun only saw Yoon Jin, then left there without a word. Hyun Jin himself then took Selji to the hospital, the one where Selji finally told me what he knew about So Yoon, as well as the person who killed her lover Yoon Jin. According to Selji, if Seo Yoon is actually not a bad person, and always willing to sacrifice for the people he loves. And Selji also tells if the person who killed Yoon Jin's lover is not but someone else, while Seo Yoon himself at that time even saved him. Knowing that truth, Hyun Jin regrets accusing So Hyun of being the murderer of her lover, until soon his partner informed him if he finds Hyun Jin, but the Yukok has died, where Hyun Jin feels if Yoon was the only witness was devastated to hear that. Until after taking Yoonji's body to the autopsy room, the doctor also said if inside Yoonji's body there is a USB deliberately placed by Yoongi himself, where The USB is a recording of Ji-won talk with Tyson about the children they harvest organs for the rulers. Getting that evidence, Hyun Jin then gathered all the investigation team to lay out the case they're currently working on, where with all the evidence available. If the serial killings were committed by Hyun Woo, who told somebody to do it? Where's Hyun Woo doing that as a form of revenge miracle that had once killed his family? Although strange, Hyun Jin there didn't tell his colleagues if the person Hyun Woo told was Soo Hyun. But even though have found strong evidence and information about all of that, Hyun Jin said if they haven't been able to arrest Jua now because of the huge influence he had, while Seo Yoon, he looks like he's in the hospital where Jae-won does insemination. There he met a doctor who in charge of keeping all that, and when Seo Yoon said that he was Jae-won's man, the doctor told me about Jae-won's madness, which is to make children out of the artificial insemination of the rulers. The goal is to harvest their organs in reserve if the rulers, it needs it. Hearing it made Sohia understand if the orphanage children include himself. Is the result of insemination done by Ji to have her organs removed. Made Seo Yoon angry. Then contacted Jae-won if he would do something that Jae-won would regret, where apparently Seo Yoon directly blew up the place. Jae-won was surprised because he didn't think that Seo Yoon did that. Sung Yoon, who now knows there are other kids that would have their organs harvested, then follow Jae-won's luggage to a place where So Hyun then paralyzes Jae's subordinates, one to save the children who were there. While in the end, the investigation team managed to find evidence. If So Hyun is the bounty hunter hired by Hyun Wook, Hyun Jin can no longer cover it and then accept. If now, place So Hyun was searched and So Hyun became the most wanted person. Then Hyun Jin got a message from So Hyun. That is a location, and when it comes to the place, it turns out So Hyun wants to leave the children he saved from Jae-won's subordinates. Seo Yoon, who seemed to want to say goodbye, then contact Hyun Jin, who asked Hyun Jin to look after the children, and also Hyun Jin, who is very worried about then asks Seo Yoon to stop doing everything, and asks Seo Yoon to trust him, who will give punishment to Jae-won. But Seo Yoon didn't answer that and immediately left. When police officers got there, Phillips has, knowing that Seo Yoon is being targeted by all police officers, and also the prosecution, advised Seo Yoon to leave Korea immediately, and is no longer involved with all the affairs at hand. But Seo Yoon instead asked Phillips to pound because he would have done something first. Phillips, who understands Seo Yoon's purpose, then give all the cars and a new phone for Seo Yoon to use on her final mission. While in his place, apparently with all the influences Jae-won had, he was immediately approached by the former chief prosecutor who warned Jae-won if the investigation team led by Hyun Jin, his son, had found solid evidence that could hold Jae-won. But even with all the evidence, the former chief prosecutor said if Jae-won couldn't be punished for being detained because that evidence is still not enough, and told Jae-won to eliminate the evidence and eliminate the children now supervised by Hyun Jin. I want this problem sorted out quickly. For that, Jae-won told Tae-suk to act immediately and contact the hospital manager to eliminate the evidence immediately. Until when this manager got into his car, it turns out that he has been waiting for Hyun Woo to be finished off, because now So Hyun no longer wants to do things. But because Hyun Woo is not professional, the act of killing the hospital manager left him traceable by the police, while Hyun Jin, alone with Hyun Jae, came straight to Jae-won's place to catch him, where with his very Jae-won also complies with Hyun Jin's wishes to catch him. Of course, it is done, because he was very sure that he would be able to get out because when Hyun Jin was interrogating, Jae-won did not answer anything he was accused of, even though strong evidence has been shown by Hyun Jin, while So Hyun himself seen coming back to Hyun Woo's place to inform that Jae-yoon has been captured by Hyun Jin. For that, So Hyun asked Hyun Woo to stop and help Hyun Jin to make Jae. Hyun was severely punished, but Hyun Woo said, if what Hyun Jin did won't be enough to punish Jae. Because with the influence and connection possessed by Jae-won, he will be immediately free of all charges, because the police officers did not know the people involved are powerful people until shortly. The police came there to arrest Hyun Woo. Hyun Woo, who didn't want So-yoon, got caught, then sacrificed herself so that So-yoon could escape from there. So-yoon, who feels if Twister finally is to eliminate the depraved Gyu, then come to Seolgi first to say goodbye, even if it's just through a phone call, where So-yoon asks Seolgi to always eat healthy food and no longer neglect his health. Seolgi heard it. He can cry and ask Seo-yoon, so that Seo-yoon can go back to being a veterinarian in his place. While in the interrogation room, Hyun Jin, who already knew of her destination, Hyun Woo commits serial killings for revenge. 2. Jae-won was seen giving a family photo of Hyun Woo, and when Hyun Jin was about to leave with Hyun Jae, Hyun Woo, "Give me time to talk to Jae-won." And it was as if agreed by Hyun Jae. Where after that, Hyun Yen, who just returned home, looks already awaited by the middle GI cell, crying out of worry. 2. So Hyun, Seolgi, while crying, begging Hyun Jin to make So-yoon back. And if it can't be done, then Seolgi begged that at least Seo-yoon could continue to live, because, according to Seolgi, Seo-yoon has always lived without receiving my love. Hyun Jin, who heard it, seemed unable to answer the second request, because now So-yoon is the most wanted person. The next day, what was said by Hyunak about Jae-won, who will not be punished, turned out to be proven, because the Attorney General's office directly rejected all charges, as well as the evidence gathered by the investigation team led by Hyun Jin, Hyun Jae, who feels upset. Then bring Hyun to meet Jae-won, who will be free, accompanied by the Attorney General himself. It turns out that Hyun knew immediately tried to double Jae-won, even if it was immediately thwarted by the person there. But Hyun Jae did that, at least to provoke Jae-won's anger a little. Once it's free, with very sensitive ease, Jae-won immediately orders Tae-soo to immediately kidnap the orphanage children, which is now being overseen by a team of investigation. Luckily, it seemed to have been known by C, where he was with Phillips. Directly save children that Jae-won's underlings would bring in, until a little chaser happens. When Hyun Jin came when Seo-yoon was trying to save the orphanage children, but when it felt that the children were safe again, Hyun Jin immediately went to Hunchava, where, in his residence, although there are many guards guarding Ji, but easily So-yoon managed to knock out one by one, until Tae-suk is left as Jae-won's top bodyguard, whereas Seo-yoon already looks exhausted, can almost be killed by Tae-suk, but the Pillis came, who sacrificed himself to save Seo-yoon from gunfire. Tae-suk saw Phillips killed and filled with rage, so Hyun again lunged Tae-soo, until there was a fist fight between the two of them. Even though in the end Tae-soo can be paralyzed by So-hyun and now lives, left Jae-won alone, who easily So-hyun managed shoot Jae-won. Jae-won, who was originally very a Daegung, is now an out. See, Jae-won begged for forgiveness to Seo-yoon, even promised to give away all the wealth, and considers Seo-yoon as his biological son. But Seo-yoon, who's fed up with all that, back to shoot Jae-won's leg, made Chae-won beg for forgiveness to So-hyun, until shortly came Hyun Jin there, who asked So-hyun to stop and put an end to all this, but unexpectedly Tae-soo, he could still shoot and shoot Se-hyun. Luckily, it was seen by Hyun Jin. Hyun Jin is forced to shoot Tae-soo. After that came a special police team with full weapons directly pointed their guns at So-yen. Look at that. Hyun Jin, who does not want to lose the figure of his heart filler at this time, Seo-yoon, trying to persuade Seo-yoon to stop and surrender everything to him. Seo-yoon, who saw Hyun Jin's initially intended to obey Hyun Jin's words, but when he saw the devil's smile from Jae-won's Hyun also without hesitation immediately retreated Jae-won's head, make Jae-won instantly until then, the joint police team immediately killed So-hyun, and it was seen by Hyun Jin himself. In the end, Soo Hyun died. Medyanyon, unable to hold back his tears. He had to lose the person he loved before his eyes. Long story short, for the heroic act of obliterating now powerful people involved in selling were immediately detained one by Hyun Jin. Hyun Woo himself then gave all the magic that he know about the crime, as well as providing information. If Selji turns out to be a child of insemination, like Soo Hyun and also Hyun Ji, while Hyun Jin himself is now living his life with Selji and also Seo Yoon's dog. We're there with a smile. Hyun Jin imagined Seo Yoon who would save the children of the crime. And imagine if he was with Seo Yoon last normal, then eventually they will both live happy as lovers.
꼭